So why this matter is important is because your head is actually designed for doing thinking instead of storing and remembering a lot of things. So I believe that life is actually is a learning process, and learning actually doesn't stop once you are actually finishing university Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Nico Shandita. I'm going to talk about productivity and specifically mobile productivity. For today, I'm going to talk about weekly planning. As some of you may actually have problems in terms of time management. You may be actually having issue in terms of you don't have enough time to do everything that you actually wanted to. And this weekly planning method will actually enable you to free up more time and to prioritize some of the most important tasks for your week, basically. So I'm going to walk through my weekly planning method in step-by-step process. There are actually a number of different things that you should do to do a proper weekly planning. So let's get into it. The first section in terms of the weekly planning is actually to do, I call it the weekly dump. So this is actually based on GTD method that is actually written from the book. It's called Getting Things Done by David Allen, and it's actually a very famous book. So what the weekly dump actually is that you would actually look at all of your to-do lists and all of your open tasks, which is actually based on various different things such as your physical mailbox or even your email or even like your paper notebook, and you would go through them and then put everything in like a centralized location for it to be processed. This also includes in terms of putting down in terms of things that's actually open things that's actually in your head, putting it down like on centralized to-do list. And your to-do list can be anything. It could be like a digital to-do list or even like a paper notebook kind of to-do list. So why this matter is important is because your head is actually designed for doing thinking instead of storing and remembering a lot of things. Yeah, so you would also review in terms of what are your projects that have been running, and what are the next thing that you're going to do next to actually move forward in terms of your project. Some people will actually have usually from 5 to 10 open projects that they actually concurrently running at the same time. So you just need to ensure that all of those are actually reviewed and ensure that there's a next section for that. And then basically you would also look in terms of the things that you're waiting on. So sometimes it's that you have open projects that's actually waiting for a decision or an analysis by your other colleagues, or even your other friends might have a pending action. So it's time to review all of those and then follow up with your colleagues, with your friends in terms of what is the next action for that. And subsequently, you would actually look in terms of your calendar, basically. So what's happening next week in terms of your calendar, and is there any additional preparation for each of those? Yeah, add them to your to-do list if you actually need to do some of your preparations. You would also review in terms of your someday tasks. So I usually have like a to-do list called the bucket list. So these are the tasks that I would there's no specific deadline for those tasks, but perhaps if you have the time, the capacity, and the budget to actually execute those, then you would actually allocate it for this week. So this actually some example of this would be to try out some of the new restaurants that you want to visit, or maybe like travel to some places that you want to see. And yeah, so I think it'll be good to actually review them so that you not forget about those things that you aspire to do in the future. Next thing is actually to review in terms of some of your to-do lists which has age, meaning that to-do list in your that has been in your list like for a number of weeks or even months. So consider whether you still want to do them, or maybe you should archive those projects or to-dos because it's not relevant anymore. So yeah, so I think it will depending on the number of projects that you are actually doing, but it will take some time to process all of these things. It will probably, for me myself, usually ranging from 2 hours to 4 hours every week to just maintain the whole list of things that I'm actually doing. But you will get like a clear sense in terms of what you want to do next from there. The second part that I would usually do in terms of the weekly planning is called the time and task audit. So I use a software called Rescue Time. So what it does is that I will show in terms of a bar chart in terms of what are the activities that I did last, such as the apps or maybe the websites that I actually open, and how many hours that I spent on those. And then I would actually review whether or not those are the things that I intend to do. So sometimes I would say that I just spend about 10 minutes in social media, but apparently the data actually shows something different, right? I would actually spend 3 hours on social media last week. So I think it's good to consciously measure what time that you actually spent on in the last week, in order to ensure that you actually allocating the unproductive time effectively and efficiently in this case, and plan a necessary action to actually address those if you're actually spending too much time on the things that you don't intend or desire it to be. And then I would actually do a time audit, meaning that I would look each of my calendar item and whether or not I'm actually spending my time effectively. Assuming that you actually have a certain dollar figure for each hour that you spend your time on, reassess whether it's still actually worth it to do those tasks in those hours basically. So to give an example is that, let's say that you value your time is $10,000 for an hour. So check in terms of the activities that you do in the last weekend, activities which are actually lesser than $10,000 an hour basically. So and then consider whether or not somebody else could do them, so that you can actually do those activities that that's actually earning $10,000. In that way that you'll be effectively allocating time to the highest value activities. And then so that's last week, and then for the next week I would actually do the same thing as well. I would actually look in terms of some of those hours that I allocate in my calendar, ensure that those are actually high value tasks that's worth $10,000 basically. If not, then it will be worth it to actually delegate it or outsource it to like a different person. Alright, the next section in terms of my weekly planning is called the journaling phase. So I usually do like a weekly journal and write down a number of different things, and I think this is part of self-observation and also learning. So what I would do is that there are several different prompts that I would ask myself. The first one is usually what worked well. So I would revisit in terms of what the activities that I did last week and what actually works well last week. And then I would actually ask myself as well in terms of where did I get stuck on. So these are things that there's actually a bottleneck or perhaps like a blocker in terms of the projects that I'm actually doing, and it can be anything from lack of time or lack of approval from certain stakeholders, or lack of the appropriate budget. So I would actually brainstorm in terms of my way in terms of how to resolve that and plan that accordingly for the next week. Next question that I ask myself is what did I learn? So this is part of the continuous learning journey, and basically I would actually ask myself in terms of the new things that I learned from professionally and also on my personal life. So I believe that life is actually is a learning process, and learning actually doesn't stop once you are actually finishing university, and you still need to be learning continuously, even a few years after university or even for the rest of your life. And then next question that I would ask is that am I showing up in terms of the key people that I consider important in my life? So the key people that I consider important in my life includes my family, my spouse, my bosses, and also my friends as well. So I would always ensure that I allocate time in terms of the most important people in my life, and not going just narrow down specifically just for work, which I can be at certain point in time, but I would like to ensure that I have a balanced kind of life. Otherwise it will be like a problematic later down the journey. The next question that I ask myself is that did I make any meaningful connections? This question is very important. So according to Harvard research, a number of years ago, tracking more than thousands of people over a period of 30 years, they found out that the single most important criteria for a happy life is basically that there's only one factor that determines that. So it's not your health, it's not how much money that you got, but it's actually what kind of meaningful relationship that you actually develop in the last decades of your life, basically. So building a relationship and maintaining them is actually a very important aspect of a good life. And I would usually ask myself that question constantly every week to ensure that I strengthen in terms of the bonds, in terms of the key people that I want to stay on with my life. All right, my next question is, did I impact in anyone's day or thinking? I would consider myself as a learner and also as a mentor as well. So I would always like to help people to actually grow in terms of their development. So and a key way to do that is actually to ask myself that question, whether or not I'm making an impact to the person and their lives, basically. So yeah. Next question that I have is what's in my not to-do list? So I think the two steps before I mentioned about collecting everything in your thoughts, everything in your email calendar, aggregate it like in one single place. So that's your long to-do list. But I think what is important as well is to ask yourself what's on your not to-do list, basically. And this question is important because the things that you don't do will free up your time to actually do the things that you want to do. So it'll be good to consciously ask this question to yourself, so that you are very clear in terms of what you are actually not doing, so that it will free up your time to do the important stuff that gives you meaningful connection, meaningful impact to life and to society. To give you some examples in terms of what in my not to do list is that I don't cook, I also don't drive a car, I do not do any cleaning. So some of those not to do lists actually free up my time and actually allocate my time in terms of other high value activities to constantly be productive. Now with that said is that I'm truly in a privileged position to not to have somebody else to helping me in terms of cooking and driving, and cleaning as well. However, you can always start from like extremely very simple in terms of the things that you're actually not doing, and work your way up basically. So yeah, I think that's a key things to be productive. The last question that I have is when did I feel most energized? So this question is an important question because energy, unlike time, is actually constantly expandable resources. Time, you would only have 24 hours in a day, and you will live like for a certain period on this earth, so it's a limited amount of time. However, energy is a different aspect altogether. You can actually renew it, and you can have like multiple increase or decrease in terms of energy. So I would always observe in terms of what are the things that is actually energy giving to me, and it takes a number of experimentation and trial and error to be always be having activities or friends or connections that's constantly giving you the energy that you want, so that you'll be always in the constantly high, upbeat, good mood in that sense. So energy is actually derived from various different aspects. It could be like the food that you're eating. It could be the friends, connections, or colleagues that you hang out with. It could be the projects that you are actually working on. It could be a number of different combination that's actually energy giving, and the reverse is true as well. There are some of those toxic relationship there's actually energy draining. There are also things that you are not really be born to do in terms of projects that you're doing. There's actually energy draining as well. So part of the self-awareness is actually to identify each of those, and by how to do that is by asking yourself that question on a weekly basis, and subsequently you would understand the things that's actually giving you energy, and you would do more of that and lesser about the things that not giving you the energy. So yeah, those are the three parts in terms of my weekly planning. There are actually 5 more sections in terms of the weekly planning, but I will continue that in my next video. So if you want to follow me, please subscribe and click the subscribe icon at the back of this video. And I'm looking forward to see you in my next video. Thank you so much everyone. Bye for now.